Welcome, everybody. This is Jeff St Laurent. This is a live Tuesday call, and I got my special guest, John Neral, I'm going to bring on in just a minute or so, and we're going to talk about today's topic is, quitting your job to go full-time, and I kind of labeled it the real emotions as one of my clients, John Neral, who's, like I said, a guest today, literally just handed in his letter of resignation. Was it yesterday, John?
It was.
Yeah, like yesterday. So this is like, as they say, hot off the press, right? And so, he sent that email to me. If you're in on my email community, et cetera, I shared that with you, what he said and stuff. And I'm like, oh, man, I had him on a little while ago with another one of my clients who was quitting her job as well. And he hadn't done it yet, if you will, but now he's done it. So I wanted to kind of capture, everything that he's going through, especially at this phase, because you could tell it was just a lot of mix of emotions and things like that, in the hopes that all of you listening, I know a lot of people that will listen to this live and know the recording, have hopes and or dreams of doing it full time. So to get a feel for what that's like, and if he can prepare you in any way, especially after having a long career, it would be very helpful. Before we get into that, like I said, I do record the calls, and I post them on my website, sellingcoaching.com, under the university. I always have those every week. I post them on Fridays, so go ahead and check that out. Also, sellingcoaching.com, right on the homepage, we have a great resource for you. It's called The Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. And I bribe you with my dog on there, just kind of as a little humor in my marketing, but a great resource, audio, and a resource PDF that you can download as a result of that. That also gets you on my email community. And so not only will you be able to receive my emails so you know what's going on with my calls each week, but also provide a lot of great content in there as well. And additionally, you can kind of see how I use email to engage with my audience, which is something that we all need to do as coaches, absolutely. And then at the top of my website, sellingcoaching.com, I have an invitation to check out my private Facebook group. And if you're not over there, it's a great group of coaches, a lot of great interaction. I like it because I get to interact with people a lot more. You get to share kind of more of what you're doing as well, especially do a lot of good stuff with video. And I'm available for one-on-one mentoring and groups as well. I got a really cool program that I'm launching next week, so be on the lookout for that. That's going to be really great. It's going to be interactive and live in groups that I'm doing and really help you transition your leads in terms of converting them into paying clients. So some cool stuff happening over Selling Coaching. With that being said, I will say this. John, welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks.
Welcome back. We're going to dive right into this. We get some more people calling in, which is great. And so if we jump into this, right, literally yesterday you gave your letter of resignation, or would you say, 2-week notice?
Actually gave a 4-week notice.
4-week notice to your boss. And how long of a career was this for you?
So I've been at my present organization for 5 years. In total, it's a 25-year career.
Wow. So I'm trying to give you an idea of people listening to this, is like, this is not just like, oh, hey, I just graduated from college and, whatever. Like this has been a lifetime career almost, right?
Right.
And you sent in your 4-week notice as of yesterday for the date of what?
December 1st.
So December 1st, your actual last day, and then you're done?
That is correct.
Okay. So just to give people an idea, right? So we did another call with you not too long ago where we kind of went over kind of the stuff leading up to this decision. So I don't want to necessarily focus on too much of that stuff, but I do want to give people kind of a little overview. What I really like to get into once you do that is kind of like, so what's going on now? What's happening? Like, what was it like doing that? That's what I want to get into, right? Because it's fresh. But to bring people up to speed and to give an idea, just give us a brief summary, if you will, of, okay, I'm in my career, I don't like my job, I find coaching, you started working with me, not too long, but just like a brief summary of what led you up to this point.
Yeah, I was looking to do something a little bit more and try to find a way to do a little bit more in my present job. I oversee an onboarding program for a division within my company and do a lot of training. And one could say I was probably doing organically some coaching on the side. I have a background as an instructional coach when I worked directly with school systems. And so as I started going through IPEC and digging more into you through our mastermind group and everything, I was really finding that what I was looking forward to most in my work each and every day was the time when I left my day job and I went home to work on my coaching practice. So whether I was working with a client or I was working on some aspect of getting the business together, that's what I was really gravitating toward. And as each kind of day and week went on, I kept finding myself getting pulled more in that direction. And when I got the clarity that coaching was not an option really in my present position within my organization, then it really started to get to the whole point about like, well, what does it really look like to take the leap? And I think that's where a lot of our work together, both through the mastermind group and individually, has really kind of helped to get to this point where I could sit down with my boss yesterday and have this conversation about me exiting the organization.
Right. And so if you go back to it, it sounds like when you started getting into coaching, what you said is you were kind of hoping or thinking at first that, hey, maybe I could do this within my organization.
Correct.
Right. And then you found out through exploring that, it's just like, wow, that's a no-go. That's not going to work.
Yeah, it was two things actually. So one was that the company actually leverages external coaches for their executives. So that was one option. So I'm not an external coach. I work internally. But the second thing was that I found out I'm really too close to it. So when I say that, I mean that some of the things that we deal with here internally, it would be really, and I think in a lot of ways, almost unethical for me to kind of help coach people because I don't think I could stay out of their box with certain issues because I know too much. So both professionally and personally, I felt like it wasn't really a good fit. And then as I started feeling myself detach a little bit from my work and gravitate more toward the coaching things I was doing at the end of my day, really kind of felt like from a values position, additionally, it was time for me to leave.
Yeah, definitely. And that's right. That's the whole thing is being too close to something. It kind of negates the purpose of us being a coach, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. So, and the reason I bring that up is because I know a lot of coaches I work with and then also have spoken with is, who are in a professional occupation, et cetera. Their hopes as they start to learn coaching is like, oh, I want to do this within the organization. And then I haven't found one person that has followed through with that where the organization was like, oh, yeah, let's do this. They tried it on different levels, but they're running into some of the things that you ran into. On a good note, though, it is good to hear that the company does leverage and utilize executive coaches outside the company as a positive note for us coaches, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
So with that being said, so now let's just say, okay, so now I can't do this within the company, but you still have a passion for coaching. And then so you started working with me and so forth and so on. But talk about, I'm just curious about the piece where, seeing yourself actually quitting your job and like, because I remember one point you said, you're like, geez, I never thought I would quit my job and be doing this full time. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it was this whole variety of emotions around, is this quote unquote the right thing to do? Am I making a quote unquote good decision? All the gremlins and the judgment and this kind of stuff comes up. And I am someone who is very strategic and very calculated and really, for all intents and purposes, kind of cautious. I mean, I know this is a risky and kind of a bold move in a lot of ways, but the only way I could really get to this point was to really make sure that when yesterday came, I was as confidently and, more importantly, competently prepared to take that leap. And so it was things like when you and I talked individually about what a marketing plan looks like for the first quarter in 2018 for me to start, getting people onto my email community and growing a business. It was about making sure I was really defined with who I want to work with and help them with what specifically, and really honing in on who that ideal client is for me. When all of those things started coming together, I felt like the pull to actually go do that was even greater, because I found myself getting up in the morning and hitting the snooze button more and more and being like, oh, I have to go to work today, instead of being excited saying I get to go to work. Like, all these things kind of came together, and I think one of the big ahas for me when we talked was that, like, there's always going to be some time where, not everything's going to be perfectly placed, but there is a time for me to figure out when is the best time for me to take the leap. And when I had initially thought that November 3rd was going to be the day that I was going to leave my organization, and there were some things on the business end that didn't really come through, and you were like, well, this is just about being patient, right? It'll come. It's not like you're wavering on going. It's just things aren't really where you need. And so when all that stuff kind of fell into place, and then it was like, gosh, now this timeline actually is even better, because I'm going to exit on December 1st. I am gifting myself taking the whole entire month of December off to recoup and regroup and everything, and then January 2nd play full out.
Yeah, it's huge, right?
It's huge.
You going on your own terms, and the one thing I want to highlight for people listening to that is that it's the patience of it. It's just, even when you decided, like you said, November 1st, and then, looking at some different logistical things and things that you needed to be comfortable as you move forward into this space, it had to change. And
right.
And I remember the call specifically when you came to me and you're like, I hope you realize this isn't me, like, wavering on my, decision to quit and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, this is, and I never got that from you at all. It was just, it's like us being smart about, look, this is going to happen. It's not if, it's just a when. Mm-hmm. And we were patient, and you found the right day, which is in December 1st.
Yeah, and so, like, yesterday morning, Jeff, I wake up, and I'm, like, dancing around the house, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to quit my job today. Like, this is huge. I get to go do this coaching stuff and, like, and help so many people and everything. And I'm, like, dancing. And I had a 10:30 meeting with my boss. And at 9:30, it was like a whole different wave of emotions came over me. I found my palms got sweaty. I was like, are you really doing the right thing? Like, all the stuff kind of kept creeping up. And it was that moment for me to kind of talk myself back off the ledge and say, like, look, what I'm doing here is not what I ultimately want to do. Why would I want to stay? I'm not serving the organization in my best capacity. I do a really, really good job. It's not what I ultimately want to do. So I was, like, so taken back by that last hour before I had the conversation with my boss, because I wasn't expecting that.
Hmm. Yeah, so let's go into this now a little bit. So the days you wrote a letter, like, how did it happen? What are you feeling? Like, take us through that process, and just I want to, even those intimate details of, like, what you're feeling. Did you ever second guess yourself? Like, what? I think those things are important because it's happening for you, and just like you, like, going back before you decide to, like, oh my God, this is what I need to do. I need to quit my job. What made it clearer and clearer each and every day was, like you said, as our work together, we figured out a marketing plan and a structure to it, and who you're helping with what specifically. And day in and day out, as we figured more and more those things out, it sounded like you clearer and clearer could see, like, wow, I could actually do this. Yeah. Because a lot of the mystery, if you will, was taken out of the whole process, right? So it made it clearer. So my hope is that as you talk about, like, leading up to this, writing the letter and then things like that in a second, if people start to hear it, not that this will be their exact experience, but they might be able to hear some things that might make it less mystical for them,
Sure. So you had asked me to write the letter a ways back, like a while back, to kind of solidify that whole thing. And when I wrote the first draft of the letter, it was really important for me to come from a place of gratitude and service, because I truly believe you can't do the next job without the one before it. And I would far rather show up from a place of gratitude than anything else in terms of leading, because I have learned so much on this job and learned like who I am as a leader and how I show up in a variety of different situations. It just, like, everything kind of like strengthened and honed in. So when I wrote that letter, one of the first lines in the letter was, it's with a lot of gratitude that I've had an opportunity to work here for almost 5 years, but I'm at a point where it's time for me to go. And then to simply say that I'm leaving, and really not so much as leaving, but going to, right? I'm going to pursue an opportunity that allows me to reach a whole lot more people than what I can do now. And when I wrote that letter and tweaked it and things like that, I mean, even right before I had gone in to talk with my boss, I like wrote that letter back out and I tweaked it just to kind of hone in a few things. And I thought, this is the letter I want to send. This is how I want to show up, is coming from a place of saying, thank you for all the experiences I've had. I'm ready to take this leap into this opportunity. And yeah, that hour before, I did kind of second guess it, because, right now I have a very, very small client base. You and I have addressed some of the financial issues and the money gremlins and trying to have a certain amount of income to sustain a life and a lifestyle and things like that. And it's all like, well, geez, I'm giving up benefits and a guaranteed salary and all these kind of things. And I still came back to this place of, I get to do a whole lot more by taking this leap. I get to work with and serve with people a whole lot more. And it was so funny, because as I was walking down the hall, our office is just a big rectangle, and I kind of rounded the corner and I saw my boss's door open. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. Like my feet aren't slowing down. I'm going to do this. And let me just say, I am blessed that I have a wonderful relationship with my boss. Like, she's an amazing person. She is one of the few people whom I've ever worked with that doesn't shy away from a conversation. And she and I have had some very candid and sometimes difficult conversations about career path and what this all looks like. And when I told her I was enrolling in the program to become a certified professional coach, she just kind of beamed and she's like, that's you. That's who you are. What I was not expecting in the conversation was for her to be so shocked and surprised when I told her. So one of the things you kind of have known about me is that I've got this sense of humor, and I sometimes mask my feelings with a sense of humor. And I had just promised myself I wasn't going to joke about this, that this was serious. I wasn't going to bury the lead. Got in, we had a little small talk, got caught up in everything, and I said, I want to let you know I'm going to resign. And that's how I said it, because I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and put it out there. And her reaction threw me, because she's not someone to get loud. And she was like, what? That was not what I was expecting on a Monday morning. And we kind of laughed, and I looked at her and I said, it's time. And we then had this most amazing conversation around me going to do the coaching practice full time, and there not really being the opportunity here to pursue that for the reasons I talked about before. And she looked at me and she goes, that's what you're called to do. And I thought, what a gift that is to get that from your boss. Like, it's sad for us that you're going to go. She said, I'm going to miss working with you, but this is what you're called to do. And it was like she got it. And so not that her approval mattered in any way, shape, or form, because I was still going to go through with it, but it then turned into like these conversations about, okay, we got to figure out how to transition your job, and I'm really glad that you have 4 weeks. And in my position, in my leadership position, I felt it was important to give 4 weeks, but she's also getting ready to go on work travel, and I didn't want to do this over an email. She deserves far better than that. And so we now have these conversations around what transition's going to look like. But what's also been very nice yesterday, I found out, is that we have an opportunity to celebrate and to recognize. And that was something I wasn't fully expecting either. So I went through this whole day yesterday of telling leadership team, and I'm starting to tell other people and things. And the wave of emotions from shock, surprise, I totally get it. Yes, you should go do that. Wow, that's really bold. Someone said to me, you know, I give you a lot of credit. That's really brave considering you're almost 50. And I was like, really? We're going to throw the age thing at me? Really? And all of these kind of things, but everyone has been just, said it's sad for us. It's great for you. We know you're going to do well. It's just, I drove home yesterday, and it was all kind of like, yeah, this was a great day. We kind of finally did it. And I sent you that email during the day. And about 7:30 last night, I experienced an exhaustion that I have not felt in a very, very long time. Like, to the point, I just went to bed. Like, I was like, checked out, done, emotionally overloaded, I'm done. And went to bed, slept really, really well. And when I woke up this morning, I felt like I did the best thing ever. Like, I just feel like there is no second guessing. There is no regrets. There's no mistake. This was absolutely the right thing for me in my professional life to do. And I could not be more excited professionally right now than what I am.
Wow, and that's what I wanted to hear, not what I wanted to hear, but I wanted to get into to see is, waking up the next day type of thing. What was the emotion like today? And you covered that really well. So there's nothing, there's no regrets, there's none of those things. It's just you're perfectly aligned. This was it. This is the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that I get to step forward. And I've been stepping forward, but this leap, if you will, and I love that whole picture and analogy, is that, it was full on, right? It is just, there is no doubt that I now get to go and do something a whole lot more than what I not only have been doing in the past 5 years of my job, but over my 25-year career. I get to take all of that with me into this new coaching business. And one of my core values is service. And so I get to serve a whole lot of people more so than what I could within this organization.
Yeah, it's bigger than you, and that's
totally bigger than me. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you listen to that, and you couldn't ignore it. That's the thing. So let me say this. So I'm listening to this as someone who's on the other end, because I've been there as well, right? And I've had my own story of this, but I've been there on the other side, and and we always have these questions. So I'm thinking about that person listening to right now. They're like, oh my God. So how did you get to the point where, or what elements you feel needed to be in place where you were able to not only execute on what you did yesterday, follow through with it, but more importantly, it's one thing to do it, which is no big thing to slouch at all, obviously, but then to wake up the next day, and obviously there's more days to come, but at least especially the next day, or even go to bed that night, sleep really well, and wake up the next day and have zero regret and know this is the perfect next step. Yeah. What do you see as a kind of a summary of like, okay, without these things, I don't even know if I could have done it in the first place, and then even if I ended up doing it, I feel like I might have some regrets or be really scared.
Mm-hmm. So the first and really the most important thing was to make sure that everything at home is good, right? So, I had a conversation with my husband through this whole process, who's been so amazing, and he was just like, you want to do this, go do this. Like, and then we talked about the financial responsibilities and what all that looked like. And when his support and the financial stuff was taken care of, like, it's still scary because we go from a 2-income household to a 1+ whatever mine's going to look like household. But to know that worry and fear and anxiety and all like that was done, that we could look at our household budget and say, yeah, we can go ahead and do this. You know, one of the best exercises you had me work through was I just charted everything that I spent for 6 months and tracked every single little thing so I know what I need to have each month to make my bills. Okay, so there was that. The other piece was knowing what would be a good time for me to exit the company. And you know, it looks very different today than it could have looked, say, 3 or 4 or even 6 months ago. I oversee an internship program. There was no way in the middle of 7 interns who I was strongly invested in their professional success in this internship to leave in the middle of it. So that took me through the end of August. There were things on the business end, you know, making sure the LLC was created, the lawyer signed off on things, the accountant signed off on things. Like, there was stuff that I felt like I needed to do to make sure my business was professionally structured in a way that I felt most comfortable with. And that doesn't happen overnight. And in my impatient personality, I wanted that stuff taken care of overnight because the minute that all got done, I could leave. So there were those things. But then it was also like spending time with a schedule to say, what does my week look like? You know, where's the time that I'm going to spend coaching and coaching intentionally on all the marketing, all the coach clients, all the administrative stuff, and the parameters that you've guided us on with like the 60% marketing and follow-up, 30% coaching, 10% admin, to really kind of have all of that structured so that when I come day one full-time on my coaching career, that I'm not sitting there going, oh, well, 11 o'clock is on. I'm going to go watch Price is Right. The schedule doesn't allow that. That's the great part about DVRs. But that I don't get distracted in that way. And so that's what was really helpful for me to get that structure. The last thing is that the last 2 months of the calendar year, my work typically slows down in my organization. So it allows for me to leave things in a really good spot to hand off, and that was something important to me too.
That's big, John. And you know, what's really popping up for me as I hear this, because, you know, we obviously talk when we mentor and things like that, but it's cool for me to hear like a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I don't normally get to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm really getting that you went through this process and approached it from the letter you wrote till even like the timing of when you'd actually leave the job, like you talked about, you know, through the end of the year, and then with the interns and waiting till, you know, the period with them is kind of settled in. And you approached it with respect.
Yes.
Right? With
yes.
respect to not only yourself and your own needs, and acknowledging, okay, what does John need so John doesn't freak out, and you know what I mean? So what
right.
are the elements? And then also, what do other people around me need in terms of like your husband, in terms of the people at work, and so it was respectful. So therefore, it's almost like you made it as easy as you could on yourself and everyone else, and therefore that was reciprocated right back at you to get you to the place where you can sleep like a rock last night and wake up feeling just, this is the right thing.
That's so well said. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
that's,
we talk about like how we show up, right? We talk about how we want to show up, right? And so, yeah, those things were absolutely important because I never ever want to do anything that's going to jeopardize my home situation, you know, my relationship at home. I never want to jeopardize anything professionally because I'm not someone to burn a bridge. It was really important for me to leave respectfully, so I never burn a bridge here. Because who knows? Maybe some of the people who are my colleagues may someday be my client. Who knows? And then also just to be really intentional with how I was setting up my business, which I think in turn lends very nicely to operating my business. Because we've talked about those habits that we create and we instill to really honor and acknowledge those. I wanted to make sure that foundation was really set in a very intentional and respectful kind of way.
Yeah, it's huge. So and that's the thing I want people listening to hear that stuff is that the way you go about things, it matters. And so it might not look exactly like it looked like for you, but it's if I'm pulling away like some more general things for the listener to take away, is more of, okay, what is it that you need? Speaking about yourself, like what is it that I need in terms of what are the things that concern me the most? What are the things finding out the things that concern your family members the most, whether it be a spouse and or child and or whoever else is involved in that situation? How does asking the question, how does this affect X person, Y person, Z person, everything? Because ultimately, if you don't take that into consideration, the reality is that's going to come back and somehow potentially negatively affect you if you don't take that into consideration as well, and that's just going to make the process that much more difficult.
Yeah, and throughout this whole process, it's been a lesson in patience, because my timeline hasn't always been the way things have worked out. And I know you've seen me struggle with some things and stuff like with patience, but like even something as setting up a home office. And for me, because that's the place where I'm going to have my client calls, and I'm going to do my meetings, and all my work's going to happen in there, I needed that place set up in a certain way that was productive and warm, and I could go to a room in my house and work there for however many hours in a given day. And everything just seemed to take longer in terms of setting that home office up. And I was like, my timeline isn't always the timeline the way that it comes out, but it was a really good lesson to learn about trusting the process and just being a little patient as things kind of evolve. And all of that stuff, like all the sweat equity, the worry, the fear, the excitement, the knowledge, the learning, all that kind of stuff happened, gets me to today to sit on this phone call to say, and I have to use the collective, we've done the work, right? We've done the work to get to this point where I am so grateful I can share what I've experienced today.
Yeah, and the thing is if you look at it, you earned this. So in other words, quitting your job to go full-time coach is you have to earn it just like we have to earn our income and earn everything else. You went about it, I say, like very methodically, well thought out, and looked at all these pieces of it. And that's the difference is I've always gotten from you, John, and I'll share this with people listening, is that, there's a difference between someone that I'm listening to who wants to quit their job, but the energy behind not only what they say and what they do is not congruent with them actually, with the words that they speak. And as you listen to even what you're saying, in my head, I'm laughing a little bit because I operate very differently in some ways. Like I just jump right in and just figure it out as I go along. And you're like, yes, and I wanted to do my office, and I wanted to make sure this energy when I walk in, and you know what I mean. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what I mean. But I'm bringing that up because there's no right or wrong way to do it. Yeah. And the difference is usually the reason I was laughing is not only because of the contrast, but mostly is that if I would be listening to that, some of those things from someone like, okay, well, I'm prepping my space, and now I'm prepping my whatever, and then I'm going to figure this out. And someone with their actions and their energy wasn't congruent with what they're saying, I would be looking at that person and challenging them from a procrastination standpoint. It feels like they're more procrastinating. It's like, because we all know, like, well, you don't have to have your office done. You don't have to have your website done and X, Y, and Z. But it's interesting because I've never once thought that about you or had to challenge you on that stuff, because I could tell and I knew you were serious, and I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's a certain intention there. So for someone listening, I kind of wanted to, the best I could, kind of highlight maybe the contrast between the two is, if you're out there and you're talking the game, if you will, and you're doing, if you will, not the exact same thing like prepping an office and some of the other examples, et cetera, but similar things. I've got to get X, Y, and Z and align the stars before I quit my job. It's one thing to be doing it methodically and intentionally and knowing that I'm doing these things and I need to do these things so that it kind of it honors how I work best. So in other words, I'm setting myself up for success. You set yourself up for success so you could walk in there yesterday and do that and then wake up this morning and feel fantastic.
Well, yeah, and just to piggyback on that, right? So I mean, I love that part about people. People just like jump in and go ahead and do it. I'm not kind of wired that way. But like going through the coach program and getting to know people through that, and then you'll see people where they put up their website, and I would see all that, and I'm like, that's amazing that they got that website up. And then I would go, well, is that the way I want my website to look? And is this what's the message going to be? And I would kind of look at it not from a judgment point on theirs, but from a very strategic place with me in terms of like, well, what do I want that to look like? Or you see people who make a decision to put their prices up on their website, and I'm like, that's bold, that's great. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. It's all these kind of things that I watched other people travel this journey through in our program, where I saw them making moves that I would admire from afar and be like really appreciative and be like, that's great, that's awesome. But then I had to take a step back and figure like, well, what am I comfortable with? What does it mean for me how I run my business and what I want to do, and what is the message that I want to put out there? So, to be respectful, to be intentional, to plan. It's a great quality, and sometimes it causes me to not procrastinate, but maybe delay pulling the trigger a little bit. But I've known that about myself all these years, that I can work around it and get to this point to just be able to move forward and do it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah. And so let me ask you this. So now, John, because you've been there and done that, you're the mentor when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So now I ask the mentor, and I say, okay, I'm out there and I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I want to do this. John, mentor, like, where do I start? What's my first step? What do I do? Help me out. Where would you guide someone if they're in that spot?
I would. That's such a great question, because everybody's journey is different. But what I would be most curious to know in that moment is why it's important for them to leave their job. Why is it important for them to do a full-time coaching practice? What is it about it that excites them or energizes them in that way? And once that's kind of known, to kind of figure out what the steps are that they would want to take. How they want to start laying the foundation for building a full-time coaching practice. In what way? We've just talked. I mean, there's some people that are like, I just want to go out and get clients and go ahead and do it. And there's other people that are going to be like, I think I want to make sure I have a solid coaching agreement before I move forward, and those kind of things as far as what's important. But I think for myself and for all of us in this spot, I think we all kind of resonate around the why. Why is it important for us to do this, and what does it mean for us to go out and do this? And I think knowing that allows us to kind of figure out what the next steps are. Yeah.
Oh, wow. If I had said it myself, I don't think I could have said it any better in terms of where you went with that. And that's probably exactly the same thing I would say in terms of why. And that's where you start off with. I remember we started you off with your why, right?
Yep.
And without that clarity on that, where can we go? Then we like you said, we get misguided by doing different things. Like, let's just get clients, and they might not necessarily be the right steps.
And
they certainly won't.
Thank you.
Yeah, they certainly won't get us through the challenging pieces where we second-guess ourselves, because we'll certainly second-guess ourselves along the way. But when it comes to pulling the trigger, like yesterday, I heard you start maybe second-guessing yourself here and there, but it didn't last too long because you had so much, if you will, evidence and proof and ammunition and due diligence, if you will, to quickly just put that fire out.
Yeah.
And so let me ask one more question, then we'll open it up. And
Sure.
I'm wondering, and for lack of a way of saying, like, in terms of mentoring, and obviously that's what I do, but how important was working with someone like myself, a mentor, in this process and your ability to be able to do this and move forward?
Yeah, so extremely important. And so really quick story. Years ago, I was applying for a job within the federal government. And at the time, the process of doing a federal resume was pretty intensive. And I was working with someone, and she said to me, I was tutoring, and she's like, "Why do people hire you to be a tutor?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm really good at mathematics, and this is what I do, and they want to source this work out to me, so maybe they're not really good at it, and it just takes too much time." She goes, "Great, how much do you know about doing a federal resume?" I said, "Nothing." She goes, "Great, pay the money and get someone else to do it." And I thought, okay. And I dropped a lot of money on someone to do my federal resume, and what came back to me was something far better than I could have ever done myself. I truly believe that my working with you has moved this process along so much because there are things that I simply did not know at the start of this that I would have floundered or struggled to learn on my own without working with a mentor or someone who is really in a position of knowledgeable authority to learn how to do those kind of things. So whatever financial responsibility that is was worth far more to me to get that information and work with someone who could, one, hold me accountable to the action steps that I wanted to do, two, to be working with someone who's done the work to say, yeah, you don't do 3 social media platforms because that's going to be way too much. Let's start with 1 and see how that goes. Like, that would be probably a mistake I would have made on my own had it not been for our work. And so the investment provides so much value, but the value is in terms of the time and the expertise, because I don't know how to build a website. That's not something I do, but you recommended someone to build a website for me that, yeah, we got that thing up and working, that absolutely saved me a ton of time. And so it allows me to get to where I want to be a whole lot easier, and I'm going to air quote this, a little bit quicker.
Air quote this, nice. Yeah. And then I asked that, obviously, I'm a mentor coach. It's not like it's a commercial, things like that. But
no.
I'm asking that because I that's where I came from. That, like, the reason why I'm here today is because of my mentors, that got me there. Mm-hmm. And it's a big reason why I do what I do, is because I believe in that mentoring piece. And so, it's nice to know, obviously I had a good idea of where we went and where you be or maybe wouldn't be as a result of our work, et cetera. But I just feel it's so important for people to hear those places, because we always try and do things ourselves, and that's I can think the human way in some instinctual way is I can figure this out. And if someone's really serious about doing something like what I did, what you did, and what some others are looking to do, it's not a requirement. However, it's something that can absolutely unequivocally assist someone to get to that spot. So, John, closing thoughts before we open up the call and actually celebrate.
I really am. I'm very grateful. I'm excited. Yes, I'm a little nervous because there's a lot of unknowns in terms of what things are like, but I feel very prepared and equipped to meet those and everything else that comes forward next year. And honestly, right now at this point in time, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else professionally. I am just super excited and empowered and liberated in a lot of ways to really go out and serve people in a way I know how.